And I wanted my husband to read my resume, because if you didn't know who I am, and if the man read that resume, he's the typical white man privilege. He managed to have a successful career, he studied all the way, and he worked in all the male-dominated industries. Who would know that a woman could do that? And not only did I do that, I did that in 13 years. When Simone Clark asked me to be the speaker today, she wanted me to tell you the story about my business, about my role and my journey in setting up a business. For the last 4 years, I've only been invited to talk about the advocacy work that I do, and I'll come back to that later. I'd like to scroll you through my career and how it came about. And I want to dispel some myths about women and career. Professor Claudia Golding won the Nobel Prize Award for Economics last year. Prior to her winning that prize, she wrote a book called Careers and Family. How many of you in the room has read that book? Really? Okay, that's really embarrassing. Right. I bought that book off, I often read the papers, and I buy the books that is recommended to me by the papers, of the 10 top summer reading list, whatever. And I buy all 10 of them, and I stockpile. So one day I found this book in my toilet. And I go, why would I buy a book called Careers and Family? Because I'm not that way inclined. But one day I ventured into the book, and she made a very interesting point, which I've actually never considered before. So Claudia Golding tracked educated women, tertiary qualified women, over 100 years, and she broke them into 5 distinct cohorts. And she defined careers opposite to jobs. So for those of you who have LinkedIn accounts, jobs are the things you do not put on your LinkedIn accounts. Jobs are the gigs that you work to pay the bills. So I work as a waitress. I sold Christmas cards. I sold telephone extension cords at the age of 12. That's irrelevant, right? Because it does nothing to boost my career. So we need to make the distinction between jobs and careers. And do you know why? Because when men finish their university, they don't go into a job. They launch their careers. But women don't launch their careers because they think, you know what? In 5 years' time, I might have a baby, or in 10 years' time, I might have a baby. I might have a gap year. I might just wait and see what I want to do. Women do not have the same hunger and the same urgency to start a career. So there was one thing, there was one definition. The second definition was family. For those of you who do not have children, family must include like a real thing, not the 4-legged things. So she was trying to measure what happens to women who are educated, has a career, and then they have to trade careers and family. So she was mapping the 5 cohorts over the 100 years. It was only in the later year, which is my cohort, I'm born in 1968, this cohort only finally managed to have both. First time. Prior to that, in the early 1900s, most of the really successful educated women gave up families. They never married. It was actually mutually exclusive. So here we are today. And I wanted to teach the people in the room that there's a system that we do to gain our careers. So how many of you in the room has ever lied on your resume? Oh, God. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And if you haven't, you should. I have lied on multiple resumes to get a job. But if you do lie, you make sure you deliver. It's not lying, it's called embellishing your resume. I had a conversation with Year 12 kids in Korean Guide Council on Wednesday. One of my children's chant to me is, please get degrees. These are all my non-underperforming children. And after a while, I agree. How many of you, when you employ people, have actually asked for the transcript? When I was given the scholarship at Bonn University, I had to provide my bachelor and master's transcript, and I was horrified. I have forgotten I failed 7 subjects in my bachelor degree. And I thought, oh goodness, they will never give me the PhD scholarship. But they did. And not only did I get a full scholarship, they gave me a stipend. Back in 2003, I did not know the meaning of stipend. We didn't have smartphones back then. So I had to go to a library and borrow a dictionary to understand the word stipend. It was never in my language. And I have a distinction in English as a first language at Cambridge. But stipend, that's a purely academic public service conversation. So in my career, so when I was 20, I came to Australia when I was turning 20. At 21, I was married, and my father-in-law at the time was running a car dealership. I was married on March the 10th, 1990. In August 1990, Saddam Hussein declared war. Overnight, our 3 new car dealerships, 2 used car yards, 1 wholesale yard, service station, spare parts, totally decimated. On the 8th of March, 1991, the business went into mortgagee in possession. I was not yet 22. My ex-husband was the oldest of 4 children. My father-in-law had suffered a mental breakdown at the age of 48 because everything was cross-guaranteed. He lost everything, from sheep and cattle property to a shopping center down the Gold Coast. He lost everything. So, lesson 1, do not cross-guarantee. After we picked up the crumbs of the car dealership, in the meantime, I had a child. I'll come back to that later. I went on to become an accountant for an Italian mining company. And this is where the lying began. I could not possibly say that I worked at a car dealership that went into mortgagee in possession and wanted to be an accountant. Doesn't matter how young you are, it's not a good story. So I forged a reference using my sister's name, knowing that they would not ring Singapore because it was really expensive to ring Singapore. So I wiped out any reference to my time in a car dealership. And lo and behold, I became the Australian accountant, company accountant for a firm called Agip, A-G-I-P. Some of you may know the Italian brand. Looks like an animal with 6 legs with fire spitting up. I was the company accountant in Brisbane. So move forward 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, I was 24 years old. And I said, I want to be a general manager when I grow up, which is when I'm 30. So I set about building my resume. I wrote to a firm, which is still alive today, called Carter Newell. I was 24, young, dumb, enthusiastic. And I just wrote to them and I said, I can speak English, I can speak Mandarin, I can speak Cantonese, I can speak Hokkien. I did not say that I couldn't write it. I said I could speak it. I was given an interview. So I fronted up at the interview and they said, oh, you could be our accountant. I said, no, no, no. I want to be a general manager when I grow up. So what else can I do? So out of that conversation, they offered me a job as the marketing manager. I said, oh yeah, I can do that. No idea, no idea. So I'm now 24, I'm now the marketing manager of Carter Newell, their first marketing manager in 1993. And we had 150 employees, 3 offices, 1 in PNG, 1 down the Gold Coast, 2 in Brisbane, opposite each other. And I set about designing uniforms, ties. I hosted corporate lunches without knowing how to drink alcohol. I came from Singapore. So I did all of that for a year, and I thought, yes, now I'm learning how to be a good person doing marketing, because one of the limitations about accountants is that we only know how to cut costs. So never allow an accountant who's only ever been an accountant become your general manager, because they go straight to the bottom line and say, oh my God, we got to reduce expenses. And I wanted to learn marketing, because if you are a really, really good general manager, you must have the balls to grow the business. Correct? Do we agree? Because everyone can cut costs. It's so easy. It's a simple fix. So that's what I did, and I had a really, really good time doing that. And then fast forward, another child in the family, and this time I was thinking maybe I should do a part-time job. And I was placed by accountancy placements back in the olden days into a private wealth company. And I thought, well, now I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to do some work-life balance. That only lasted 2 months. Within 2 months, I went from 2 school-hour gigs to full-time work. And in the time, again, because I looked a lot older when I was young, because I already had children, nobody expected an accountant to have 2 kids by then. So I lied about my age, because nobody ever asked me for my age. So I lied that I was 10 years older, because guess what happens when you're 10 years older? You get paid more money. So I started with being paid $28, and I worked my ass off, and I got my CPA. And I thought if I got my CPA, I should ask for a 20% pay increase, which means I can make the same amount of money and work 20% less. Every person kept me on, and I just have to work harder. I've got more money, but I was still working really hard. Subsequently, I decided if I want to make more money and work less, I should not have an hourly rate. I should do a percentage of the contract, of the project. And I made a lot of money. So I went from $35 an hour to almost $150 an hour, because I was a very quick worker. Nobody knew how many hours I spent. So they just wanted to see the outcome, which I did. So for those of you from the construction industry in the room, I set up Construction Skills Queensland for the government. I set up an entire board for them. I hired all of their staff for them. And I charged them a percentage of the value of the contract. And then when I did not make enough money, I asked for more money for the project. And my income was a percentage of that project. So life goes on. And I want to touch quickly about family. I have 3 children. My first child was an accident. My second pregnancy was planned, but it was a miscarriage. I cried for like half a day, then I realized I was more upset that it did not go according to plan. And then I stopped crying and I went back to work within a day. Then my real second child was planned, and we used to call her my favorite child because she was really planned. And then my third child is another accident. So my third child, who's here today, she unfortunately, she's a really good accident. She was unfortunately born in June. For those of you who are accountants in the room, nobody has babies in June. So baby number 3 came to work with me every day. I used to shut the door and breastfeed her. All my kids were breastfed because I loved the time with them afterward. So today I have 2 grandchildren. One was born 2 days ago. Elijah was born 2 days ago. Thank you. I didn't do anything. And I look fabulous because I had 28 years to get this body back into shape. And I have my granddaughter Lenny in the room today. She's 14 months old. So going back to family, Brandon and I babysit our granddaughter every Monday, Tuesday, and half of Wednesday since she was 5 months old. And I bring her with me everywhere I go. You know how during COVID, we accepted let's work from home? Post-COVID, all of you in the room must embrace family at work. You cannot demand that we go back to work and not allow the family and the 4-legged things that we brought on into our life during COVID to stay at home. It's actually a rude shock to the system. So Lenny goes everywhere with us, and she has to go to sleep. I put her in the pram, and I say, can everyone just give me 2 minutes? I shake the pram, and this child goes to sleep. She is a child. She's not a monster. She's not a devil. We have to stop thinking that everything must live in its separate boxes. Thank you. And to make this possible for everybody, can the men in the room please stop bringing your babies to work? Please, because we've got to normalize families at work. It cannot just be the women, because otherwise we'll play into the narrative that caring is my job. Caring is not my job. Caring is our job. In 2018, so I got to tell you about my business. I was really put on to tell you about my business. Simone loves my business. So in 2003, after I've done my MBA, I was doing my MBA in 2002, 2003, we spent 2 weeks looking at the aggregate purchasing power of the global aging population. And I sat in the back of the room and I thought, you know what? Maybe it's time I should go into business. I want to go into business building or supplying a service for the old people. I was 35. I was single by then. I was single for 2 years by then. And a block of land came up for sale at John Paul College at Springwood. And I was in Perth playing golf, and I thought, you know what? A lot of men built houses, and they didn't really go to school. I mean, I've got a Bachelor of Business. I'm a CPA. I've got AICD, I've got an MBA. Surely it can't be that hard. And I was so confident I could do this. I sold my house, and the deposit that I had, the equity that I had, only paid for 5% for the block of land. I negotiated a 153-day contract, and I ran like hell to seek finance. And I did. And my business partner is here today with me, with his family. And I'll tell you another story about the people in your life. So fast forward, I became the first female to break into the retirement village industry. Prior to my work in the advocacy space, I was best known as the girl in the retirement village because there was no women in that space. I was giving talks about how innovative I was, but my innovation was informed by my PhD scholarship at Bonn. Bonn University gave me a PhD scholarship looking at, go figure, housing options for the Australian aging population. And not only did they give me a scholarship, they gave me an entire budget to do whatever I wanted to. I visited over 100 retirement villages pretending to be a PhD student. I collected so much intelligence. And I built and designed, I designed my entire village. I designed and built the most amazing retirement village in Australia because I was a PhD student. So I said to the women in the room, be creative, lie a little bit. Do you think everybody gets through life being honest? This is not Singapore. That's why I moved to Australia. In Singapore, they send you to jail for not flushing the toilet. Here is fine. Here is we call it telling a white lie. I have never heard of people telling white lies until I came to Australia. And then next thing, if someone says something a bit strange, you go, fat income? Yeah, that's because they're fibbing. Perfectly fine to fib. So do not hold yourself back. But if you want to embellish and you want to lie, make sure you follow through. Don't say they are a really good cook and then you buy McDonald's. Well, that's not following through. So those are the things that I think women have to get better at, lying. In 2018, after I finished building my retirement village and my last child had finished university, I was suddenly single, plenty of time, so I started volunteering. At the ripe age of 50, I entered the volunteering market. Overnight, I became the president for the National Council of Women of Queensland because not many women at this age volunteers. And within a year, I became the president of the National Council of Women of Australia. Within another year, I became the assistant treasurer for the International Council of Women. And then, within less than a year, I became the head of delegation for Australia for our G20 Women's Summit. And all along the way, I got this random proposal by the Prime Minister and Cabinet. Would you like to be on the Women Economic Equality Task Force? I go, what? With Danielle Wood, with Jenny Macklin, with Jennifer Westacott? Why me? Do you know why me? I'm the only representative from Queensland because we got to be geographically representative, and I'm an Asian. Asians gets peace. And for the first time, somebody said to me that I am a woman of color. I go, really? I said, but isn't a white woman a woman of color? Is white not a color? I'm actually quite confused that I have to be singled out to be a woman of color. I have never thought of myself as a woman of color. In Singapore, the Chinese population is the majority of the race. I have never grown up being a minority. I have never thought like this, and I do not know like this. So I find it quite interesting when someone pulls me over and says, you're a woman of color. I go, oh. I said, I'm actually colorblind. When I met my husband, I'm not colorblind, I know this is pink. Anyway, when I met my husband, somebody said to me, oh, you're dating a ranger. I go, am I? I have never noticed that he's a ranger. I just don't see these things. I go, oh my God, you guys really break it down a lot. And as I said to my children, my children, if you're a dog, my children will be mongrels. But if you're like a motor vehicle, my children will be a hybrid, right? But somehow we keep labeling. We spend so much time labeling as if it makes more sense to you. It actually makes no sense to everybody. Because instead of getting the job done, you guys are spending all this time labeling. And then what happened? You get angry. Or the wannabes run along and wanted to put on a label. But why? You're wasting time and energy. You could do more. I have 9 email accounts. I sit on 3 boards. I run my businesses. I look after my granddaughter. Do you know what time I go to bed? Unless I have an international meeting. 9:40. Do you know how many hours I sleep? 8 hours. I'm buggered. And one of the things, and Bruce, my business partner, will tell you, I have never rung people before 8:30 or after 5 p.m. because it's actually not life-threatening. So I knew boundaries, even from a very young age. But we don't know boundaries because we're continuously connected. And it's not healthy. I don't work on the weekends. I don't have a cleaner. I wash and I clean and I don't even use a dryer because I can't stand the noise of the dryer. So if you all want to be more effective, don't be so concerned about what they're saying. I'm politically so incorrect. My children are often embarrassed by what I say. They call me the mother without a filter. But you know what? I was the most popular mother because I had no filter, right? So get out there and do what you need to do, but don't think so much about why people will like you or not like you. Do you know why? Because God gave us 7 billion people. Surely one person will like you. Don't be so hung up to be Mr. or Mrs. Popular. It's unnecessary. Unnecessary. I had my neighbor ask me, do you have girlfriends? I go, no. Why would I want to have, what do you mean? She goes, oh, I hang out with my girlfriends all the time. I go, for what? I mean, I hang out with my children, I hang out with my husband, I hang out with my family. I don't understand this concept. I said, oh, then we get wasted. I go, and then we talk about things. I say about when you put a bunch of women together, the conversation is never quite healthy, which is why we want gender equality, which is why we want men in the room, because it's a litmus test, which is why men need us in the room to be real. They need us in the room to give them a different perspective. And we need men in the room to tell us, oh, shut up, suck it up. And it's right. It's okay, we just get on. I used to say to people, I love being premenstrual. I no longer am premenstrual, obviously. I'm now menopausal. I used to love being premenstrual. Do you know why? I was the most effective debt collector, 2 days a month. I don't take shit. I'll ring up and say, now I'm jumping into my car and I'm collecting the money. Do it. Don't waste a bad mood, right? You wake up and say, yep, today is my day and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to just beat the shit out of them. And then you come back and you feel so much better. You don't have to pay gym fees to go to a boxing class. Apply to be a debt collector. It's the most satisfying job and they pay you on commission. Another source of income. So think laterally and think creatively how you can lead a bigger life. And I travel. I'm overseas 3 months of a year. Bruce, you did not hear this? And I work, and I'm constantly working, but I travel 3 months of the year because I know how to blend what I do with my advocacy work, with my parenting tasks, because I want to make it all happen. So yes, we can have it all, but you cannot have it all if you don't plan it. You owe it to yourself to plan, to strategize. If there's one thing that I want all women to go home today with, is I want you to play the long game. Play the long game. Don't play the today's game. Don't buy a dress to put it on Afterpay. Play the long game. Think about where you want it to be. I knew where I wanted to be at 30. I knew where I wanted to be when I'm 40. At 50, I got rid of my boyfriend because I knew between 50 to 60, I wanted to be a grandmother. And I cannot imagine parenting with that person. So he had to go. Not because I don't love him, but he's not in keeping with my next 10-year strategy. And that is very important, but I also had to get out because I was 3 months short of the 2-year de facto definition. So I thought it was time to go. So I want you guys to holistically think about what is it that you want to do. I said to a lady one day, I said, look, I stand on the bathroom scales every day. Do you know why? Not because I'm neurotic. I'm a bit neurotic, but I'm not neurotic because my health is as important as my business strategy. If I'm not in good health, if I don't eat, if I don't sleep, if I don't check what I weigh, then how do I know when I'm not being healthy? It's a very simple measure. I know that this week I've hardly eaten, I've hardly slept because it's been a busy week, but it's okay. I'll reconcile it, as an accountant would, on the weekend. I'll eat a bit more and I'll sleep a bit more, but it's okay. But it's about being mindful, not letting things get away from you. Just be mindful. Be sure that you are doing something, you do it mindfully, purposefully. Not because somebody comes along and asks you to do something random and then all of a sudden your whole life is diluted. You only have one life. One life. Live it well and do good. I do a lot of things for people in the room, not because I was raped, not because I was beaten up, not because I was denied education, not because I had a glass ceiling put on me. No, I'm doing all of this for you. So you could at least do something for yourself. Set yourself a goal, but not a goal for 12 months. In accounting terms, as current. Do non-current thinking. Go beyond. 10 years is a good time. Singapore policies are 100 years. We go to election but then we are benign dictatorship, so let's not go there either. But you have control of yourself. You have to do it for yourself. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity because I don't get to tell my full story. I often talk about women policies, economics, but my business story is my passion. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to lie about it because I walked that walk. And it's been a really, really interesting journey. So can you imagine, my granddaughter is here today. She's very cute. She's the love of my life. My granddaughter is here today, and when she was born, my daughter refused to let her be my pinup child. I wanted to put her photo on LinkedIn, and I say, I do all of this for her. And if you haven't got that focus, find one. Lenny is for sale. Yes, Jessica? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm torn between your brutal honesty and your ability to lie through your teeth. As a journalist, I'm just going to turn a blind eye. No, it really did resonate with me a lot. I was a stickler for the rules my whole career, and the plan and the career, the ladder was so set out. And I wish sometimes that I had bucked that a little bit or lied here or there. Like even when I finished university, I worked for free for a whole year because there were no jobs, and my resume was terrible.
Oh,
I could have just beefed it up a bit.
Absolutely. But when you want to lie, make sure nobody finds out. Ring a friend. Ring a friend and triangulate.
It's so true. We're going to have some question time. There'll be a microphone over to the left. If you have a question, you can actually line up to ask Chiou a lot of things. We're going to ask some questions as well. But if you have something that you want to ask her, just come over here and I'll point to you in about a minute or so. So just if there's something you'd like to say. I feel like you're a font of information and things that you've done, experience. And what I loved so much is about saying how kids should be seen in the workplace. And I have to say, with Channel 7, I do the weekend news, and every second Saturday, my boys come to work with me, and they love that. And Mum and Dad help me on the Sunday. They always look after the boys. And the boys will often say, why aren't we coming? We don't want Mama and Poppy to come. We want to come to work with you. Because they love seeing what I do, and they love knowing the environment that I'm in. I only have them half the time. So getting that time with them, even at work, is really, really precious. Yep. And I love that you said that. Now, Chiou, I'd like to ask you, what are some of the most pressing challenges that you're seeing that girls and women face, both here in Australia and globally?
I think we have not done the flexible workplace story well in Australia. I think we tend to promote flexible workplace as a way of including women in the workplace, but we don't really have a strategy on how we can advance their careers. It's almost like a leftover strategy. I think if more companies come together, and one of the things that I issued an International Women's Day statement on my way here today for the National Council of Women. I think we need to look at the gender composition of people who take up flexible workplace. I think that will in itself eventually solve some of the gender pay gap. I had some ferocious argument on Sunday about the definition of gender pay gap. The definition of gender pay gap is not so much the desire to achieve zero. The definition of gender